Alright, what is up guys? So this is going to be a video going over Dungeonborne, as I'm sure you can see. Recently, me and a bunch of other creators in the Dungeonborne community, we were able to see like a little teaser of what's to come for early access, and the playtest that's coming up, and we are now able to share some of this information with you, the stuff that we were shown. We found out about it a few days ago, and we had a few days before we could actually release it, and now that we can actually make it public, it's time to yeah, it's time to show it off. So to start off with, I will say generally the stuff we covered in the like I don't know like a ton of stuff. Like obviously I didn't see like I didn't see like anything new in the classes that we haven't seen. Mostly what we saw was they told us a little bit about what I'm about to like what you see on my screen here, and they mentioned and showed us a lot of item changes that are coming. A bunch of really big and really cool and really fun changes. So to start off with, this right here, the screenshot you are seeing, this is of the tutorial dungeon. Yes, they're adding in a tutorial dungeon. I'm not sure exactly if it's going to be like solo or trio. I didn't ask, but I assume it's probably. I mean, it maybe has a solo queue and a trio queue mode. I'm not really sure. But I have one other screenshot, and you'll see that. That's going to be the thumbnail for the video to show off. But this looks really cool. Like, honestly, like, if you guys look at this, I'm sure if you're a Diablo player, this looks very familiar. This is a very Diablo-esque, like, area here, right? Like, like honestly the colors, like the layout and everything, and also like the way the picture's oriented, right? Like this looks very Diablo style. But this is definitely like, like some scenic stuff. Like, obviously you're gonna be down there third person over. I don't know if this is like you probably like maybe you spawn in here on the portal or something, or this is like the way you get out. Who knows? But overall, it's pretty cool. Like I said, I'm very excited. As you guys know, if you played the game, their map design is fantastic. Specifically, the solos map. It is literally just one of the most well-designed maps. It is fantastic. I love it. Visually, it looks amazing. It feels really fun to play on. It's just a great map. So I'm very excited for this. And a tutorial dungeon for new players will be nice for them as well. Now, moving on to the big things. So, on the left, you have all the existing affixes that existed in the game, like, all the possible stats you can roll on your gear. And on the right, we have the new ones they're adding. These are going to add a bunch of different new things for build variety. And on the bottom here, it is cut off. That is EXP gain. Other than this, I'm sure like you can freeze it here and go over it if you want to look at every single one. But a lot of these are changing kind of the way you play. Some of them are PvE, some of them are like actual PvP. Like for example, down here, added damage on hit. Like I said, this is very like Diablo Path of Exile esque building style, right? Like lifesteal out of combat, critical strike chance out of combat. These give you like these really high burst damage builds, like on Rogue. Movement speed out of combat. This is either you're kiting around the map really fast, or like you back out of combat, you can move away, you can run away really fast, move around the map. Just a bunch of really cool things that are new. Like, and the thing is, a lot of these actually have pretty good viability too in terms of like making either PvE builds or PvP builds or whatever you want to do. Then you have things like gold on kill, gold on extraction, gold on first opening of each chest, like these things that are very PvE focused that are really strong in the early game, or if you're just trying to farm gold. And then moving on, so they are adding set bonuses to gear. The best way I can describe this is it won't be like a set like a full like a World of Warcraft set like pieces. You either get a specific piece. It's more of a Gunfire Reborn style where you can roll a set effect on multiple different pieces, and you have to get points into it. Like you see here, for example, on the Longsword of Shadow, it has Storm Rage, and there are 3 different levels that you can unlock. And if you roll this on multiple pieces of gear, which I'll show you in a bit, like then you can unlock the higher tiers. But just to go over a couple of these, like Storm Rage, moving generates charges upon reaching 100 charges. Direct hits deal that deal unblocked damage. So this is like if you do chip damage, if you hit somebody's shield, that doesn't count. You have to like directly hit them with the full damage. And if they're like blocking and you power attack through the shield and hit them, I assume that counts as unblocked damage because they didn't block any. It wasn't partial; it was the full damage. Will trigger Storm Rage, inflicting additional lightning damage and reducing the target's movement speed by 75% for 0.75 seconds. And you see they're at 15 out of 15 points to activate this, and then the next two have 25. It's 15 out of 25, and then 15 out of 30. So if you get up to these thresholds, you will unlock these, and you'll have all of these effects. And the next one is when Storm Rage triggers, gain a 40% movement speed bonus for 1 second. And then Storm Rage will now ricochet between up to 3 targets, dealing 100 lightning damage to each target. And then think of like, you can get like extra like, lightning damage on like here, like you could build like these elemental damages, like things that you weren't building before because, for example, primarily the weapons that people would be using towards like late game, you had like fire weapons and shadow weapons, and then, cleric had holy, or like they had elemental weapons for like wizards, but these actually make building things like lightning damage viable for other classes. Like even if you're not a wizard using a lightning staff, you could build lightning damage for this like build style right here. And then, like I said, I'm not going to go over every single one of these because you can read them here, just see what they're on, see what they are, just go interested. I do, however, want to talk about the defensive ones. I think the defensive ones are really, really cool. So you have first off Dragon Scale. Damage taken is reduced by 50% upon being hit on a 60-second cooldown. And the second tier, the damage reduction effect will now last for 3 hits or 3 seconds before it goes on cooldown. So every 60 seconds, if you have it fully activated, you take half damage from 3 hits or up for up to 3 seconds, right? Like that is insane. That is honestly for tanks, it's not even that great. Like it's not bad. And there's a couple things about this that I think that's probably gonna have to get nerfed because of what I'm about to mention right now. Characters that have really big burst damage, like this is okay. This I say honestly, I say it's gonna get nerfed. It might not even. But one thing that's really big for this that I'm about to mention, sorry, like I said that twice, but you get that. I have to. I'm getting really excited about it. Is this improves time to kill by a ton? Because think of the really big things that were able to burst you from full. Pyroblast from Pyromancer, the really big fireball, and Swordmaster swords. Those two things could literally like one shot you or do 90% of your health bar just on like the first engagement, right? You have this, they're getting reduced by half. Like they are getting half their damage half. And yeah, like the Swordmaster is going to hit you more than 3 times, but the big thing is you usually get one shot because you get hit by all of them, right? Well, one attack, one shot. But like half of them or 3 of them are only going to do 50% of the damage to you, and only the last one's going to do full damage. And it's still going to hit really hard, yes, but it is not going to just outright kill you anymore. Then on to the next one, Pity of Death. When taking fatal damage, your health is instead set to 70. This effect can only be triggered once per life. And then if you get the second tier, this effect can now trigger multiple times but has a 120-second cooldown. So if you get these 2 tiers activated, you have a res on a 2-minute cooldown. If you have only the first one activated, then you have a once a run res. And like, yeah, a lot of you are going to look at this and be like, oh, it just sets you to 70 HP. Like, that's not good. They're just going to immediately kill you again. And yeah, that is a possibility. However, imagine you have a cleric, right? Because think, the cleric has been changed, and now their shield gives full damage immunity. So you get revived, they throw the shield on you, and that gives them a chance to heal you back up to an acceptable range. Or a class like, Rogue, for example, that doesn't have a ton of HP but has a ton of mobility, they can move out of the fight or, like do other things. Even just having that last tick of HP could throw the team off and you're able to turn and, get one more hit or something. Like if they lived on 1 HP but they killed you, now they haven't, you have the chance to finish them off. And then there are some really, really cool ones. These last two, these are really, really cool. You have like RNG based one, which is called the Drunk Alchemist. When dealing unblocked direct damage to an enemy player while out of combat, gain a random potion effect. If the damage is ranged, there is a chance to instead receive a random flask effect. This effect can trigger once every 30 seconds. So basically, if you hit somebody, right, then they're going to get like either you get a random potion effect, or if you're too far away, like you're ranged, then you get a random flask effect. Which I assume, because I'm not 100% because I think the flasks are like thunderclap or incendiary flasks. Because I mean they're the damage buffing ones. But other than this, if you have the second tier activated, instead of it being actually I don't know if it still gets used, but if you activate the passive, you gain the flask in your inventory. So it's kind of just like you just farm them off of hitting people, right? Which is pretty cool. It's pretty like it's a unique thing. And then the last one, which is like a gold farming augment called Midas's Touch, you gain 10 gold coins directly to your inventory after killing an enemy. You gain 20 gold coins directly to your inventory after opening a first chest. So the chest has to be open. It's to be the first time the chest has been opened. And then gain 600 coins directly to your inventory upon successful extraction. And so this by inventory, it means you're like your stash, right? And the thing is that's really good about this is you see it rolled on it rolled on green gear, so it rolled on like the lowest rarity of gear basically. And the first entryway has a really low, like it has really low requirement. It only has a requirement of 3. So you can literally get this on one piece of gear and then you just have an extra gold gain each time. And especially, if you're playing trios, this is going to give you, it might not give you a ton, but this could easily give you, somewhere around 200 to 500 gold per run if you're really killing a lot of stuff. Like it's 10 extra gold per. Like that's a ton, right? That's a ton. Then moving on. So they've changed it now where they items will roll a random, like they still roll the random modifier, right? Like so the green one can roll attributes or it can roll Midas's Touch. But then now like armor pieces will roll defensive modifiers. Here it says random defensive modifier. And it will also roll its attribute. So no more rolling damage on like, armor or rolling like tankiness on, weapons and things like that. That just doesn't happen anymore, which is really good because now it makes it a lot harder just to full damage stack on everything and then one-shot people, which was kind of an issue because before, classes that didn't really care about defensive stats like wizards, they could just full stack damage on every single piece. And then, or, like, a pyromancer or cryo or rogue or whatever you want to call them, they could full stack damage on every single piece and then just one shot you. Now they can't do that. Everybody's going to be a bit tankier because they're going to roll defensive modifiers on their armor. However, they're not going to be doing as much damage, so it's going to slow the game down, which obviously is going to feel pretty fun. All right, moving on. So affix rolling rolls the exact same way as you can see here on the damage, like right here. Like you see, like they roll damage modifiers now. Green gets Sora Midas's touch. And then one big thing to note is you see up here at the higher rarity, they added plus all attributes to these pieces of gear, which personally, I'll say it, I'm not a big fan of. Um, I think this is going to end up getting changed, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. However, I just don't particularly love that, right? That is one thing that I'm not super into, but it is what it is. And then moving on. So this right here is the affix rolling table. You can see over here the possible what's it called? The possible set effects you can roll and the pieces they can roll them on. So you can't you can't stack dragon scale on every single piece. It can only roll on certain pieces. And you see like it has different values it can roll at different rarities. Like Midas Touch can only roll on or Midas Touch will only roll on greens. But then you have all the good ones can roll on blues and purples. And the higher rarity piece of gear you have, the higher it can roll to. So if you have like full purples, then you can get multiple set effects equipped at one time and have a really, really big benefit from that. But other than that, there's not a ton to talk about. Like I said, this is most of what we saw were just the items and the new effect things, like the new affixes and stuff like that. And I am very, very excited for this. I think it's gonna be incredibly fun. Just these new affixes alone opens up so many more build paths, and it's very clear that they're taking a lot of feedback from their game. They're nerfing damage, they're increasing tankiness, which is really, really fun because it's people aren't gonna die as fast across the board. Tanks are gonna be one-shotting. Tanks are gonna be getting one shot. It should be really fun. And then, like I mentioned, with all these new affixes, there are so many more builds you could potentially do now. That's just going to be really cool, right? Like, and having more build paths, like having more stats that are viable and actually do something, that's fun. Like, that's going to feel good for the game. But anyways, that's probably going to wrap it up for me. I'm super excited. Again, if you guys don't know, the playtest is you can sign up for it. I believe it begins July 3rd. You can go sign up for it on Steam. The search Dungeonborne. It's like a playtest. Should be ready. And then, as far as I'm aware, early access should also be shortly after it because this is a last short test to see if everything's good, and then they're gonna go into early access after. Um, Other than this, I guess the things I can mention is as if you're not in the Discord, they have shown a bunch of teasers for new classes that have been changed or updated or buffed or whatever that we've saw, and they've said pretty much every class has been changed at least somewhat. Some perks have been moved around, some skills have been changed, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And with that being said, that's gonna wrap it up for me. So I'll catch you guys later. Peace.